And then I buried the body of... Oh! So, yes, the body of work I buried, Jenny, is something we'll talk about after the conference. All right, thanks everyone. This is Jenny Gillan. The safe word we'll be using today is swordfish. Amazingly, I've been told to moderate my own session, which I definitely don't think is a good idea. But what I can say is we're starting with the actual stuff of music education. Here's a child that we prepared earlier. His name is Gabriel Yi. He goes to a little school in Ormond. You can all repeat the name of the school after me. It's called Yesodei HaTorah College. Thanks, you're all part of the tribe now. They're going to be playing the famous march from Prokofiev's Love of Three Oranges. He's accompanied by his associate artist, I should say, is the impossibly wonderful Edith Golder. Modesty, of course, should prevent me from telling you that she is my wife. Please enjoy their performance. Thank you, Edith and Gabriel. So what are we doing today? Well, we're popping the lid on what your possible VCE week might look like. So I always like to start the week with listening, actually. And one of the things that I think is really important about listening is the environment and the conditions that we do it under. So, of course, you need an auditorium like this, a grand piano like that, and musicians like that. I mean, that's obvious. But in the absence of those things, what you do need is a really good hi-fi. And Pache, what we've heard previously, I'm sorry, I don't teach without a good CD player, and I don't teach without a good integrated sound system. I need an amplifier attached to my CD player. I need a pair of good speakers, and I need them to be far enough apart so the kids can actually hear stereo. And I don't think those preconditions for basic listening are met in most schools, and they need to be. I also think that they need comfortable chairs, and I also like having curtains that will block out light, because my kids always listen better in the dark, because then they're not in the visual world. And taking kids out of the visual culture and into the oral musical culture is something that listening is really born to do, and we should do. So I've handed out little strips of laminated paper, very kindly made by Ms. Gillan here. Thank you. I think the first one is personal impression. Who's holding personal impression? What's your personal impression of that music? About that piece we just heard? Yep, it's one of those wonderful Project Zero routines where you get kids to headline. What was the main thing you listened to? Although generally in my own class, for personal impression, I ask them to say things that we're not going to cover in the element taxonomy later. So it's really, literally a personal impression. What images did you think of? What memories did it bring up? What kind of art object are we dealing with here? Because if the kids have an opinion like that, and start backing up with evidence, they'll write with a lot more animation than if you're just working through a rubric. Yes, I'm very anti-rubric. So what's number 2 on the non-rubric I handed out? Who's got number 2? Yeah. Tempo. Tell us about the tempo of that music. Yeah. I wouldn't use an Italian term normally because that's an artifact of music notation. I'd probably say fast, moderate, slow, or moderately fast, moderately slow. But you're not going to go wrong using the Italian term. But if you wouldn't apply it to music cross-culturally, then I think we're involving ourselves in a bit of a cul-de-sac by using that term. Sorry to jump on you, but that's why I handed out these bits of paper. What's element 3? Number 3. One of you's got it. Don't be shy. You can hand it to the person next to you. Number 3. Maybe have a look at the numbers on the bits of paper you have now. It's probably meter. Put your hand up. Someone shout out something about meter. Yeah, thanks. Meter. Back row. Interesting. I'd probably start with something like quadruple. But remember, note that I said quadruple and not 4/4. Because quadruple's cross-cultural, but 4/4 is a notation artifact. I love this. I love this gig. And what are we up to? Number 4? Who's got 4? Go. What's the tonality of this music? If Al Qaeda took over the theatre, you'd say minor, right? Hands up, everyone for minor. Hands up, everyone for major. Okay, we have a lot of non-committed people here. I'd call it major just because it starts and ends there. And really, music is a kind of hero's quest teleology. Where it starts and where it ends, even though there's tons of minor and weird chords and funny modulations, if it's going to begin and end in a certain space, then I think that's what we call it. But we can argue about that in the foyer forever. What are we up to? 5? Who's got 5? Go. Yeah. Harmony. Tell us about harmony, Mandy. Yep, harmony is serving as a way of reinforcing the sinister militaristic rhythm, and I think that's really good, particularly when we're talking about contemporary music of right now. Harmony typically doesn't have a functional role. It typically has a role of reinforcing the rhythmic argument. Okay, next, go, hand up, shout out. Tell us about melody. Take it up, bum, 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 ba-da. Yeah, it's in a kind of constant variation thing, isn't it? And we heard a really good transition, didn't we? Just back to the recapitulation, it's just doing that gradual transition thing. Yeah, I mean, if I were to describe that rhythm, I would say, dum, 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 bum, ba-da. I would say that it's got the dum, it's got that semiquaver thing, and then it's just quadra beats, da, 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 and then it focuses in on a dotted rhythm on the next one. And I'd probably draw a contour for it. Dum, 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 da, da. It's got a rise, fall to the tonic. So that got a function, and that rhythmic cell that makes it up. Little drum beat anacrusis and the march dotted rhythm with that anacrusis. That's what I look for, shape, basically, and what are the rhythmic and pitch cells that it's based on. And it's 5, 3, 1 is the basic harmonic motivic outline. Next element. Yeah. What is the texture of this music? It's a busy accompaniment, but at the end of the day, the answer to this question, the first answer, the little screw on the end of the drill bit, is going to be homophony 99 times out of 100. You're very rarely going to encounter true polyphonic works or monophonic works or heterophonic works in VCE or the world. But then it's about saying, well, if we've got melody and accompaniment, and when I define texture to kids, I say it's the relationship between melody and accompaniment. Who's doing what? What do those two main strands? But we've got quite a busy accompaniment. It really feels like an orchestral reduction, which is what it is, where you're hearing all those counter melodies and things. But when the violin plays, it is the hero, isn't it? Okay, next. Form. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's ABA, again, like 99% of Western music, it's ABA. I mean, the fact that that is so universal to our culture suggests something about the way our brains are made as well as what the goals of Western music are, isn't it? Next. Yeah, so background features, who, what, when, where, why, who wrote this piece, who plays it, who listens to it, what kind of piece is it, when was it written, why was it written? What do you think? It's opera, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Russian is art music. So it's art music written for the concert hall, first half of the 20th century, bang, that's your big features there. And you explain to the kids that that cultural metadata is present in the exam paper. They can read it. And even though it's an unfamiliar work, it's not like they haven't heard pieces of music before. So they can infer a lot about, oh, this has been played by the London Symphony Orchestra. It's probably not Scandinavian hair metal, right? Next element. I think we're talking about our feelings now. Emotional intention? Yeah, Jack?
Emotional intention first.
Do you want me to give you multiple choice? Is it happy, sad, angry, afraid, or tender? Because they're the 5 big ones. Let's have a show of hands. Hands up for happy. Hands up for sad. Hands up for afraid. Hands up for tender. I like the fact that we had a spattering of happy and a spattering of tender, because I'd say it's basically happy. Why? Because it's fast, quite loud and major. But it does have a bit of a thing because of the harmonic and motivic grotesquerie that characterises Prokofiev's music. It's a bit like Thelonious Monk. He always has the right, wrong notes in his music. Emotional intensity, who's got that? So emotional intensity is, I can't believe I'm overborne by this performance. It's so emotional. Everyone in the audience is crying. It's the premiere of Tristan, right? And at the bottom is, I'm listening to the Chapel Royale singing a very slow motet by Ockeghem. So what level of emotional arousal is in this performance? Emotional intensity? Oh, it's okay. Emotional intensity, 0 to 10, where is it, that performance? 8, okay. I would have put it more around 5 or 6, it's quite controlled. But, again, that's comparing the piece you haven't heard before to every other piece of music that you've heard before you come into the room. And it's interesting because I like arguments between kids who've had an intense emotional experience because of their listening and kids who've had because of what the performers are doing. So sometimes it's the story being told, and sometimes it's the way the story is being told that's encoded in the emotion. But that's one of those things that you can't get wrong as a listener, but you need to be able to justify. That's why I always drop it in there. And as for those big 5 emotions, happy, sad, angry, afraid, tender, there's a lot of research backing those up, and they're a simple function of tempo, tonality, and dynamic, right, to generate all of those 5 primary emotions in music. What's our next element? Articulation. Rubato. Who has got rubato today? And we're like, yeah. This performance, how much rubato? Hardly any. It's a march. Who wants to march in rubato time? I don't know. I'll give it a go. You're not going to invade a small Central American republic. So it's very strict. That's where its energy is coming from, is from that strictness. So we're probably up to articulation. Dynamics. Who's got dynamics? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. If you were to commit to one big statement about dynamics in this performance, you'd say they're trying to play. I'd say loudish, Yeah, absolutely. And there's these little bits that they sneak back on. Next element, articulation. Yeah. Yeah. Again, if I had to commit to one thing and then nuance it, I'd say it's that spiky, grotesque, march-like thing that's dominating it, and then there's comparisons to that. And finally, we're finished. We're done for listening. So that's how listening. Right room, right gear. Make sure you've got a CD player or a really good streaming account, but it's better to have a CD player because then you get the booklet and you can actually learn about the music and the musicians, and make sure the kids are in a physical environment where they can actually listen properly.
Listening Jenny's way, I deal with things very much on an element by element basis. So I will give vocabulary lists and everything for each of the elements, and I will make sure the kids are memorising. There was one year 11 group that I had that every week I actually gave them a vocabulary test for particular areas of analysis. So they'd have their articulation, vocabulary test, and then their dynamics and so on. And those would not only be terminology, but how you actually approach those questions. And strangely enough, when they got to year 12, now I didn't collate those. I said, next week you're having a test. And I didn't get the results back, but they sat there for 10 minutes, wrote down their vocab. Then I put the answers up on the board and they were able to self-assess how they were doing, and then we moved on to the next thing. So it was no extra work for me. When they got to year 12, they asked me to institute that again because they're like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing this week? My best kids have made their own flashcards, different colours and different things. And, you know, one came in the other week and showed me her key ring, which had all the melodic words in pink and the dynamics words in green, and she would flip through them on the train and stuff like that. But I tell my kids every week, this aspect in particular is won and lost on vocabulary, and if you're not memorising your words so that you're able to have them at your fingertips, then you're not working enough on this particular area. The first thing in terms of getting back to our whole subject, which was looking at your VCE week, and we've had many awesome things here, is actually planning your year. So this is where you get down with your colleague, or if you don't have a colleague, as we know there are many people who are the music department, if you found a partner, they're good people to talk to about these, but you need to put in your assessment dates, plan your contour, your content, plan your school musicals, when they're going to be, and concerts and things like that. There's nothing quite like having a plan and finding out that week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, you're going to have half a class or no class because of the school musical rehearsals. The other thing is, and we'll talk further about this, but concerts, because your kids need to, and especially it's more important now than ever, they need to have a lot of opportunities to actually perform. Now, I can't remember who gave this advice, but there was a particular university class, and they were complaining that the university wasn't providing them with enough opportunities to actually perform. And the lecturer said, why are you waiting? Is this not important to you? Find your own opportunities. You know, invite your friends over and feed them, and while they're eating, play to them. But whatever you're doing, and in high school you have to, you know, lead them by the hand a bit more, but also encourage them to find their own performance opportunities. They can go busking, they can have friends and family around and have their own soirees. They can organise families into groups, and that's what I've done with my kids who are in primary school. We have soirees and we do those sorts of things, but that's concerts as well. When I was teaching at Christchurch, they actually had an informal soiree on a Tuesday after school every week. And sometimes 4 or 5 kids would play, and sometimes 1 or 2 would play. But it was really informal. There was no program involved. People showed up, they did their thing, and the more chances that they actually get to perform, the better. Okay. So this is where we get down to the nitty-gritty of the week. And lesson 1, and this is not this is how you must do it, but this is a suggestion for how to actually tackle your lessons. And if you have, 3 or whatever, you do the math. So the big topic in lesson 1 would be listening, and the learning of the listening vocabulary and the listening of the music and all the different ways in which that occurs. Now, at VCAS, we have lots of different ways that we do listening examples. One of the ones we found really successful, and again, this was thanks to lockdown, and it wasn't all bad, although a lot of it was actually having shared Google Docs, and we still do that now. And what I will do is we'll have a listening question, and then I'll have a list of things in different colours. So for example, if it's a tone colour listening question, I'll then tell them to shade in green all the tone colour words they used. And then I'll ask them to shade in red all the instrument names they used. Then I'll ask them to shade in puce all the reasons for tone colour. So it's bright because it's high pitch, it's dull because it's pizzicato, all those sorts of links. And we had the most amazing listening session the other day where I actually asked them, after they had done their analysis, to look at the list, to go to the next student under them and apply the colours to the student that was under them in the list. And that was amazing, and the amount of feedback that they were actually given, I felt like I'd cloned myself 34 times because it was exactly what we would have said. More tone colour words needed. Connect the tone colour words to the instrument, give reasons and all that sort of stuff. So you can actually teach your kids to really get into that in a way, and often when they're the teacher, they pick up on things that they wouldn't necessarily just getting your feedback. The other thing we do is, and this was an idea from an alumni, she actually said she had a document that had every bit of feedback that she'd ever received. And she categorised it. So when she got feedback in these Google Docs, or there was global feedback in the classroom, or anything written on exam, she'd go to that document and she'd write it in. So she was doing a tone colour question, she'd look, oh, okay, I have to make sure I do this and this and this. Her development was absolutely, astronomical in how quick. And it was only when she fed this back, we actually asked alumni to do videos for the current VCAS cohort to help them through lockdown. When we saw that we realised, how powerful her learning was in doing that. So lots of different ways. The other thing was we gifted our kids a listening diary very excitedly. They were beautiful. They were just notebooks, but they had a special cover, and we excitedly handed them out and we said, guess what, guys, you're going to fill this. And the more you fill it, the better you're going to do just by practicing and doing this stuff. And the second topic is oral. So we're going to go rhythm and all that sort of stuff.
Shall we start with rhythm?
Yes, we'll start with rhythm.
And rhythm is a really good place to start, and it's a reason why it kicks off our element list and study design, because it is absolutely fundamental. Or maybe hide that slide, Jenny. Hide it, go back one. Oh, that's clever.
It never happened.
Plausible deniability. Okay, so how long am I talking about rhythm?
Sorry?
5 minutes on rhythm?
Yep, 5 minutes.
Okay, timekeeper. Okay. Everyone doing West Side Story style clicking? Okay, just repeat after me. I'll give you 4 big patterns. Ready? Do. Now this is why this system is so much better than all other rhythm systems, with the possible exception of academic, and that is that it's a description of musical time. Right? Let me show you on the board. Everything on the beat is always called do. Everything halfway through the beat is always called day. Everything third of the way through the beat, and I won't talk about compound time, is do is da, and everything 2/3 is D. And everything else is ta. So what's the advantage of this system? Well, the beats always line up. You always know if you're dealing with a simple or a compound time, and you're always attending to 3 levels of rhythm. Where's the beat? What's the primary division? Is it 2 or 3? What's the tertiary division into everything else? Right? It actually teaches you structure. That's the whole system. So I'm going to do some imitation exercises with you that get progressively longer, and then we'll look at some notation. Ready? 1, 2, 4 beats. 3, 4. Do today to do day. Do day to today. I'm now going to give you a 6-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do today to do day do data. Here's another 6-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do day do day to do today. Nice. Here's a 4-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do. Do day do day do. I'm now going to introduce rests into 4-beat patterns. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do to data, do day. Do data, do day. Do data, do today. Do data, do day. Do. Do day, do day. We're now going to do North Korea and South Korea. Everyone on this side of the wand is North Korea, and everyone on this side is South Korea. The slide. North Koreans, you're going to do the top line, the first 2 bars. 1, 2, but listen to me. Do data, do day, do data, do today. Top line, first 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do data, do day, do data, do today. Great. South Koreans, here's your pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do day, do day. Go. North and South Korea all together. We're in the demilitarized zone, trying to out-music one another. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Now we're going to swap parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. That's how I do my rhythm teaching. Never teach rhythm without meter, and you can do that with a stick, or you can do it through countings, do it through body percussion. Whenever you're teaching it, always give the kids imitative work, grow the imitative work. Don't teach the kids rhythms that they can't perform and they can't imitate back, for the same reason you wouldn't teach them a word that they can't say. And only right at the end we look at notation. Next topic. Shall we talk about pitch? And these chord names are spelled out really brilliantly in Eric Bluestein's book, The Ways Children Learn Music, which is a book that's mostly correct. That's 5 stars for me.
Okay, so we're now talking about melody. Now, melody's a hard one, and it requires a lot of work over a long period of time. So if your students come to you with 2 weeks to go before the exam, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do for them. So again, you need to start this early, and you need to do this often, which is one of the reasons why having an oral lesson and making sure that you're doing this each week is a really important way of going. So I teach in the same way Anna Van Veld does, And I'll show you a similar sort of thing. She did the rhythmic clever echo, but I do melodic clever echo in the same way. So here's my do. So this is what I call dumb echo, for want of a better word. Do, re, mi, do. Mi, do, re, mi, do. Hand signs too. Do, re, mi, do. Mi, do, mi, re, do. Now here's clever echo, mark 1. Lu, 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 lu and point. Lu, 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 so far go. Do, re, mi, re, do, lu, 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 which is mi, re, do, mi, re, do. Next one, lu, 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 lu. So far, do, re, mi, do. Good. We've stepped up to the next level. Which is just going to be immediately so far back. Okay, so I'm going to go lu, 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 lu. You go do, re, mi, lu, 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 lu. Okay, so there's my levels of difficulty there, okay? And this is just do, re, mi, but I teach up to university students and beyond, and I'm still doing clever echo with them. It might be in Dorian mode, it might be in, modulations or any of those sorts of things, but this is a technique, it's basically short melodic dictation. So let me unpack what I did there. First of all, in the dumb echo, you got used to having the sounds, it was just echoed backwards and forwards. Then there was you echoing, and I was showing you with the hand as you were showing the contour, and you did the solfa. And then we went without me showing you the contour, and you were just doing it. And then we went on to just immediately answering with the solfa. So that clever echo kind of way of taking away the scaffolds is getting them used to the particular intervals and all those sorts of things. So that's the structure that I use in melody. I warm up my kids that way, and then I'll give them a melodic dictation, a short melodic dictation, and as I'm doing that, well, when that's finished, we'll go over the melodic dictation and we'll sing what we've just did. We'll do it with hand signs. I also encourage my students to check with hand signs, so they'll be going while they're actually checking what they did. And most times they'll go, oh, that's wrong, and they'll fix it because it's spatially happening. So when you've got the melodic skills there, you need to build it up over time. The other thing I do it is through sight reading, and I use the Mark O'Leary sight singing school to do that. So we'll sight read with the same tone set, and we'll improvise as well. So I write improvisations which either have you sing the A section and they make up an answer for the B section. So I could go do, re, mi, do. Go to the first person and they'll go mi, re, do, do. So they're making up an answer to that. Or when it gets later on, I'll have chords beneath that and they'll need to pick notes from the chords. Or I've got, improvisation songs and structures like my very shadow, it follows me, and it becomes my melodic shadow, and then they do the solfa little bits in between when there's gaps. So lots of different ways with melody, but improvising, you really know it by the time they improvise it. But you need to do this a little bit often, and with these two, I have audios and videos doing this. So what my kids sometimes will do for homework is they'll say, okay, here's video number 1, holding up here, they press play, and they will record themselves doing that back. So they're practicing those patterns on that particular thing. Yep.
I guess the reason why we're emphasising practical activity in oral, you think, well, when are you going to start with the oral questions? For me, like the beginning of wisdom was reading Karpinski's book on oral skills acquisition, where he said oral skills are sight reading, they are sight singing. If you are a good sight reader and a good sight singer, you can do the oral questions. The problem with giving kids endless oral questions is that you'll have one kid in the room who gets it the first time, and you'll have the other kid who never gets it, right? So what kind of activity are you doing? But if the kids are sight reading, rhythm and pitch, then you can tailor that activity on the spot by making it simpler, harder, shorter, longer, slower, faster, whole class, half class, pairs, individuals. And that can be activity that's led by you in mimesis or performed with you or performed solo. So there are all of these ways you can make rhythm and pitch sight reading and sight singing easier and harder in a way that it tailors the activity to the level of the kids in the room and is getting them better and better all the time. The actual writing out of stuff is something I don't spend a lot of time doing because, I mean, we'll show you some of the resources we have here. I've got a book of all of the pentatonic scales, all 120 of them. We'll often just be singing through letter names in free time and using that as a basis for improvisation before we do any kind of notated activity. I'm a composer, I'm obsessed with notation, but also realise the limitations of it. It's something that we tend to emphasise over other things that we should be spending more time doing, which is actually making the kids more musical. Were we going to talk about chords?
I reckon we'll probably run out of time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the simple chord thing is just getting the kids singing through the complete chord vocabulary. Do, mi, so, mi, do, re, fa, la, fa, re, just like that. And if they can sing up and down all of the chords in a key, then they can identify the chords in 2 seconds. I loved Anna's hand thing, though, that's really good. And just singing in 3 or 4 parts in your class. Now, can we talk about singing?
Yeah, I could just, one thing about the harmony. So I have year 7s and 8s, and we are doing some 1, 4, 5 and 6 type stuff. At the start of the year, we would do, the do, mi, so, mi, do, 1 major. We'd sing through the 3 chords like Anna did, and then I'd do like a knockout thing where I'd play a couple of chords and they would have to show with the hand signs which chord we were on. At the start of the year, there were maybe 4 kids who were standing at the end of that, and I did it last week, and there was everyone standing, so they'd really grasp 1, 4, 5, 6 type stuff. So just by doing those echo things regularly, it's a 5-minute activity. Play 2 chords, get them to sing do, so, play 2 more chords, do, fa, play 2 or 3 chords, do, so, do, and they go do, so, do. It's just, a little bit. Short activities often.
And in terms of the high stakes questions, melodic dictation, chord progression dictation, and rhythmic dictation, they should ideally be doing that every single lesson. And it's as simple as clap a rhythm, get it set back to you. If they can do the solfa, then they can write the notation is simple. It's a simple translation. One thing, often teachers will say, but I'm not a singer. Well, I'm going to say something characteristically brutal. Just become a singer, all right? If you are teaching this subject, you've got to be able to sing, and you've got to be able to sing with enough confidence that everyone else is going to sing along with you. But I can't sing, I've never learned to sing. Well, get a singing teacher, join a choir, I'm sorry, there's a million people out there who can help you with this stuff. Just find your voice and use it. And it's the same thing with it's having a few simple keyboard skills as well. Everyone in this room, if they're not already doing it, is capable of being able to sit down with a keyboard and play a simple enough chord progression for kids to practice transcriptions, or just grab the piano teacher in the next room and get them to teach you, and you can teach them something you know. But I think it's a sine qua non for VCE music that you can sing okay, and you can play piano a little bit, and you can do those things just so you're not constantly running to a bit of tech to do this. I'm not, as you probably guess, I'm not a huge fan of using technical mediation of these things. That should be kind of like the common lingua franca of musical practice in the classroom. What's our next topic?
Well, we're going to talk about theory and then performance. They're on that.
Do you want to talk about theory, Jenny?
I can talk about theory.
Okay. So with my theory, I teach thirds, and it's so I teach that the major thirds are do, mi, fa, la, so, ti, do. or Church of England funds or Great Britain on all the white keys, and then I get them to be able to make the things bigger or smaller using flats and sharps, and then I use those as the basis for sixes and sevens, because they're basically the inversion of those. And we do Father Charles Goes Down and Ends Battle, so you learn all the key signatures, basically, majors and minors. So 3 flats and sharps is not a problem. You don't have to stop there. This is a whole other huge thing, so we won't say much more about that, but this one often is the easier way of going. Yes. Yep.
Why get the kids doing endless theory questions when you can ask them to compose a short piece for you? That's all. Compose a 2-bar piece, and you'll see straight away where the theory problems are. Copy out a 2-bar section of your work. You'll see straight away where the theory problems are. And it's much more creative and interesting, and you can tie that into the stuff that they've been singing and playing and the rhythm work they've done in the first half of the lesson. It's really, all of this stuff can be taught creatively. And theory as well, I don't even like the term music theory, because there is no theory of music. It's not a scientific practice. It's just cultural conventions of Western music is what we should call it, not theory. There was one other quick theory thought I had about writing stuff down. Yeah, kids are really bad at writing music out, so give them lots of practice of doing that, because once they've written out, they'll understand it in a way that they won't if they're just reading off a page. Junie? On to performance. So much to say about performance. Do you want to start the ball rolling?
Sure. So first of all, performance is a big part, but I think the thing that we want to say mostly here is its place, and this, I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but the place really shouldn't necessarily be in your weekly planning classroom time. Dun, 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 dun. I know people are like, hey, let's just have a lesson where we perform to each other. You don't really have time, is my feel on it. So again, I think it's a really good idea to move that to soirees and all those sorts of things. There will be times when you need to do that, but you need to make sure that that's not what you're doing all the time, because the other big topics need to be covered. So I don't know how controversial that is, but yeah, you'll need to work with individuals who need attention. You'll need to schedule time with accompanists and all that sort of stuff. And you've got the analysing for performance stuff. But yeah, and the other thing, which is really important, is work closely with your instrumental teachers right from the start. Know what's happening and keep an eye on the programs that your kids are doing, so that you can head off any issues. Again, if you've got, pianists who are doing works that last 10 minutes, that's half their program. It might not give them enough scope for meeting the criteria. So make sure that you're working with your instrumental teachers right from the very start. Know their names, buy them chocolate, buy them a drink every now and then.
Yeah, I'm all for plying instrumental teachers with alcohol, obviously. Definitely. I want to talk a little bit about the preparing for performance. Analysing performance. Please, we've got to stop using the word technique, technical stack. It's just not that at all. It's everything you do to prepare for performance. Obviously, technique is a part of that, but stressing technique tends to just make the kids neurotic. Of course, they need to do it. But, it's that wonderful study with the 2 soccer teams, and one soccer team was coached in all the good things they were doing and just doing more of it, and the other team was coached in all the things they're doing wrong and getting them fixed. And the performance of the team that got told, here's what you're doing well, just absolutely overshot, and they won the premiership. For the simple reason that we enjoy working on things that we do well more than we enjoy focusing neurotically on things we do badly. I'm not giving license to not address those things, but you can address them through the agency of the things that the student is already doing well. So, kids, it amazes me whenever I go and assess this task in its old form. The kids were talking about rhythm without using a metronome, and they're talking about pitch without using a tuner or getting a starting note from a piano, and they're talking about improving and critiquing their own performance without looking at a video of them performing, right? So the technical means are at our disposal for the kids to teach themselves. We need to teach them how to teach themselves. The other critical thing with analysing for performance is if I get to teach it next year, hopefully, What I will probably be stressing is that we've got this wonderful statement of elements of music that, we all had a hand in, but, Neril did an incredible job at drilling down on what these elements mean and how they interrelate. We can teach performance exactly the same way. We can teach listening the same way, analysis the same way, oral and theory the same way. Are we ready to go into questions?
Yep. Just got
Yep.
conclusions and questions? Yep.
Okay. Conclusions. Firstly, performance, out of class where you can. Oral needs to be taught right from the start, a little often. If you're in P to 12 or 7 to 12, don't just start at VCE, start as early as you can. Buy the earlier teachers a drink.
Find out the feeder schools and go and teach all of it.
Yep, find the feeder schools. Yep. Set a timer, but be flexible. I put this one in. It is the bounden duty of the talented to cultivate their talent in order to serve their fellow people.
Yep, machine translation out of Hungarian's not quite where it needs to be at the moment.
And this is because we get to what you need to do to be a teacher. First of all, work on your own musicality. I've been doing this for a while, and I've been teaching oral for a while. Every chance I get, I go to summer school, every chance I get. And now that it's actually open, the world has been much more open because of Zoom and all the rest of it. I've been doing my musicianship stuff straight from Hungary. I've been attending the lessons. They have, semester-long things, which is straight from Hungary, from some of the best. So always work on your own musicality, because it's your duty to be the best musician that you can be so that you can teach these people. Be fluent in notation. Be able to sing. Be able to play the piano. If you can't play the piano, guess what? It's the bounden duty of the talented to cultivate their talent. If you can't sing, guess what? It's the bounden duty of the talent to cultivate your talent. If you're not good at notation, guess what? Yeah, have a CD collection, says Adam. And do things that allow you to be paid to practice. I'm teaching a lot of teachers at the moment, and I'm teaching them and saying, okay, you need to do this and this to practice to get better at it. So how about you do it with your students? And then you're being paid to practice, and you're getting better each time. You might be crap at it the first year, but the second year you're going to be better and better.
So we've got a wonderful selection of laminated questions that are out there. So let's have a rapid fire. They're classified 1A, 1B, yeah?
Yep.
And we'll take turns answering them. Go, 1A.
I think that was answered in the talk, wasn't it? Good, yep. Thanks, next. 1B. Here you go, how do you conduct food?
Just make sure that the kids know that they can express their opinion and they won't get told, that's wrong. But it'll actually be a dialogue where we find out what the kids are experiencing and thinking, and we lead them into different and more extended learning.
See? I think we answered that too. Good sound. Testing, 1, 2.
Not YouTube.
Yep. Next, D.
1D, do I need to become a collector? If so, how do I become a collector?
Yes, you do, and you buy good resources.
And read magazines and go to concerts and listen to the radio.
Yep. 2A. 2A? No, 2A's disappeared. What was 2A?
2B. Yeah. 2C.
How do I become a more confident singer in my class?
Do heaps of singing in class. Hang out with singers. But
D.
not too much.
2D? How do you deal with the question, I don't want to sing?
Get over it. Just everyone singing all the time, every class, normalise it.
Yep. And that's also partly creating a culture. Be realistic, that could take some years, especially after what we've gone. St Michael's used to be an amazing singing school with the chapel and all that sort of stuff. We've come back from lockdown, and guess what? It's not so good. It's going to take us a while, but it's a priority and it's going to happen. 3A.
I also struggle with notation. That's what I say to the kids. We just get better at it, and we get better at it through the use of carefully graded material and through having lots of music in our heads, lots of pitch and lots of rhythm in our heads. Let's learn how to write it out. I love Robert Duke's saying, you always go back to the beginning. Always teach from the start. I can't write rhythm. Oh, can you write this down? Oh, great. So we'll just start from there and then we'll move on. Everyone's getting better at notation, including me, including Jenny, including everyone in this room. That's all.
3B? Very.
Next.
Yes and no. Okay.
Yeah, for simple things that need animation for practice at home, but why would you spend a lot of time looking at software when you've got a professional music teacher in the room?
Having said that, there are some pretty cool hacks, and my latest one is musictheory.net, and you do a test for intervals and only have one interval in it. So you have a major third, and you get the kids to do the test, and you go, it goes do, do, and they go do, mi, and then it goes do, 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 mi, and so you get them to do that test 10 times. Guess what? They practice the major third 10 times, and I'm doing that at the moment with minor 6, which is one of the ones they get wrong. It's a test. They always get it right because there's only one thing, but they sing through it.
Read Neil Selwyn's book, Distrusting Educational Technology. We don't need teachers who gamify learning for them. The kids are already sitting on screens until 3 in the morning. We don't need to tell them about screens. We need to get them the hell off screens. Next question.
3D, yep. 3D, is theory connected to sound? Yes.
Next.
Where does theory sit in the sequence?
Right at the end.
I would actually say alongside, but you know.
No, don't listen to her.
Don't listen to him. Next question.
Sound, sight, theory, crawl, pull up, and then walk.
Next question. We're on to 4A. Studio teacher's role. Go.
It's bad. I was just going to mimic like drug paraphernalia, but that would be completely inappropriate, so I'm not going to do it or even mention it. What I would say is it's critical, and you've got to make sure they understand the task. When they go, I'm just going to do it my way, so well, we need to get a new teacher then, sorry, all right? You need to be quite assertive with the instrumental teachers. They have a specific function, and at the end of the day, as the VCE teacher, you are the piggy in the middle, you're the boss, you've got to tell them what they need to know, and the kids can't be doing their first run of their recital a week before it, all right? They actually need to be prepared months in advance. Right?
Yep, what are we up to? 4B? 4B, yep. I think we've already answered that. Yep.
Next.
4C, yep. Sorry? Oh, as much as possible, every week. Get them over the scaredness, especially after COVID. They need to perform. You have kids who haven't had a chance to perform for a very long time. Yeah, not in class. I mean, you can, but just, I think the point is, you know, you say not in class because you don't want a lot of it in class, but, you know, and Adam's saying absolutely never. There's a lot of other stuff you need to do in class.
What's music, everyone? Well, here's my answer. Music's a social practice. It's something we do with other people and we do it for other people. So that's not getting up and performing like a few bars badly in class every 2 weeks. It's actually a concert. We have a cultural mechanism, a ritual of communication for our art form. It's called the concert. We can put them on all the time. We can put them on all the time for no money, and we can invite people to listen. Or, you know, I've always worked at K to 12 schools, so we'd always just go on tour. We do that every week. Let's go on tour the primary school. Let's go on tour the early learning centre. Let's go and bring the kids to us. The kids can be performing all the time, but it has to be an authentic representation of our art form. It's a social practice. We do it together. We do it for other people. And if anything's missing from that, what are we doing? We're just mucking around in a classroom.
4D? Okay. Yep. I think we just answered that. Yeah. Yep. 5, or are we done? I think we're just about.
Any question whatsoever?
Okay. By the way, listening beyond hearing, blah, blah, blah. There's my online...
Buy Jen's book. Buy Jen's book.
There's the analysis stuff. There's all that stuff. And thank you.
Thank you.
We're done. Moderate. Turn into a moderator and tell us to go.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer, and
Adam. And Adam.
thanks everyone for staying to the end, and I hope you enjoyed the conference. Anyway, adamye613@gmail.com. Please, I welcome all comments, and pop down for a chat about anything as well. And good on you. It's been a long day, but a good one. Enjoy. And thank you, Mr. Kelly.